Hello, everyone, and welcome to Freedom Friday. I am Shannon White, your mindset coach, and I am here today because I really wanted to take a look at stress and how it is impacting us as women of color. So I decided today that I would do a special edition on the Superwoman Syndrome, and how it is affecting us as African American women, especially as it deals with stress, strength, and our health. So I have today with me a special guest on the line, Dr. Angela Clack of Clack and Associates out of Sicklerville, New Jersey. And I wanted to take a minute to welcome her. Welcome, Dr. Clack.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
And I wanted to just thank you for taking the time out today to spend some time with us to kind of talk about, from a psychological perspective, how the Superwoman Syndrome is affecting African American women specifically, and those health disparities that African American women seem to have as a result of this phenomenon that influences us as women.
I think it's a very timely conversation. Everyone from Ebony Essence and clinicians that I work with, yourself, even the clients that I'm seeing, we're starting to recognize that this is something that has been long-standing for lots of women of color, and they're finally beginning to take a look at it. We're writing about it. We're researching it. So it is definitely a necessary conversation, and it's time for us to make some changes.
Absolutely. Well, we see that it's something that we've dealt with for so many years. Being a superwoman has been a necessity for survival for African American women when we look at the socio-political context of our lives. Specifically with the climate of racism, race and gender-based oppression, disenfranchisement of women, the limited resources that we've had during and after legalized slavery in this country. So we've always just had to learn to make it work. Now, it stands to reason that without this survival mechanism, we might not have been as successful as we've been in the face of such tremendous historical hardships. But I think that we're on this line, and I think that this is such a huge discussion because we can all agree that while it has been an asset for us as women, it's also been a huge liability for us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Because it's not serving us well to think and believe and to operate under the assumption that we can do it all because we have done it all.
Right.
So there's a difference. The reality is that I've been in a position, if you're a single mom or you're a woman who's been a caregiver, or you may have been in the role where you've had to do it all, but it comes at what expense?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the question that I really wanted to pose today for our listeners and those who are going to be joining us today is there a price to the superwoman role that we play as African American women? Does this legacy that we talk about of strength in the face of stress among African American women have anything to do with some of those current health disparities that we face? And really, going into it is being strong a double-edged sword for us?
So those are two very, very complex questions. So I'm going to pull the first one apart. So the first one, we're talking about the impact that believing we do it all, be it all, and can do all of this, the impact it has on our physical wellness. And it absolutely is contributing to illnesses, chronic illnesses, and I think people don't recognize it as being part and parcel of this quote-unquote Superwoman Syndrome, because over time the illness develops. So it's not like you wake up one morning and you say, oh, my back hurts, or you go to the doctor and you get the serious diagnosis. This is a build-up over time of cumulative stress for years and years and years, and so you may not naturally associate it with being and wearing this cape and trying to do it all. But it really is, because if there's no other connections between your physical illness other than, if you haven't had any pre-existing disorders or conditions, we're looking at the fatigue, we're looking at the wearing down of your body, even psychologically. So naturally, we're going to begin to think, how did I get to this place? But you have to look back at your history and say, oh, my gosh, I've been working 3 and 4 jobs. Oh, my goodness, I've been doing this, I've been doing that. So that's the physical implications. And then your second was the double-edged sword. Well, you know, the interesting dynamic that I find out is that when women come into therapy, and this is one of their presenting complaints, that they're tired, that they're having to do everything for everybody, that no one's checking on them or no one. It's a double-edged sword because the same woman that's been caring and doing so much and hasn't delegated and hasn't asked for help has now set up this dynamic where people won't ask, people aren't going to volunteer because you look like you got it all together. Mm-hmm. You look like you carry it all. You look like you can do it all. And even sometimes when people ask you, you say, oh, no, I'm fine. Oh, no, I'm good. I don't need any help. Inside, you're like falling apart. You're so tired or you're so stressed. But because of the ego, the pride that we have as women, because we have traditionally stood on the back of ancestors who have done it all. And I need people to reflect on that because I'm sure that Harriet Tubman did not go without pains. Right. Just because they're our ancestors and they did so much in terms of fighting and carrying us through slavery and then post-slavery, I'm guaranteeing you that they were tired, that they were worn down, that they wanted to give up. And at some point, they had to start to rely on other people. Mm-hmm. And that's where we have to get the black woman to, is that the cape has to come off because it's not serving us well anymore.
Right, right. And I think that we've been through, the situations that we've been through have taught us that being vulnerable or dependent on others cause us to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And that people will take our kindness for weakness, and that when we ask for help, when we ask for the opinions of others to help us to get through certain situations, it creates a vulnerability that once we become vulnerable to others, we can't come back from that. And then people use that to their advantage. That's what we're taught, I think, as a community. So talk a little bit about how, with the women that you've worked with, because I know that you do a lot of work with women in trauma. How does trauma impact, being a superwoman impact our ability or lack of ability, whatever one you see most of, in dealing with our stressors?
One of the things that I've learned, and that I'm hoping to have other women become more self-aware of, is that vulnerability is a necessary condition. Right. So you have to be vulnerable in order to allow people to come in and step in and help you. Mm-hmm. Being vulnerable means I'm exposing myself by telling you I'm in pain, by telling you I'm depressed, by telling you I'm overwhelmed. Vulnerability is not necessarily I'm breaking down and falling apart. Now, for some people, that it may be so prolonged, the stress may take them there. But the vulnerability is I'm exposing myself to someone or people that I trust and then I believe I can rely and depend on to help me to problem solve, to help me to be more in touch with my feelings, if that is. So whatever that thing is that the woman struggles with, she has to be vulnerable enough to be open to experiences where people can start to speak to her and speak into her life. So it's not a falling apart necessarily. I think people associate vulnerability with being taken for granted, particularly if they have trauma histories, or domestic violence relationships, or even or intimate partner relationships where they've trusted someone, their trust has been violated. Right. So now they think that they associate with being vulnerable, but we know that violence is not equated with a woman's vulnerability. That's about her being in a powerless position over someone. So that's very different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how do you think that plays into our inability? There's a couple of things. Our inability to say no in situations, especially when we're overwhelmed, and our ability to depend on others, particularly black men. Mm-hmm. I think that this is a factor across, different groups or different age groups of Black women particularly, but some people state that they've done it for so long, or that taking the lead or being in control of situations feels so normal to them that they really can't even accept, taking direction from a Black man, as I pointed out earlier. And they don't know how to say no. They feel more comfortable being in a leadership position or being in charge of their relationship so that they can protect themselves, number one, from getting hurt, but also from making sure that things get done, quote unquote, properly. Like no one else can do it like you can, because this is what you've learned to believe, and this is why you're having such a hard time taking that cape off. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to that or speak to that a little bit?
So you said a mouthful, Shannon.
I did. I got
listen. So when I respond, if I forget something, say, okay, but what about this? Okay. So the first thing I heard you say was this thing that we have a difficulty saying no. Mm-hmm. And honestly, part of that is modeling, because many of the women in our life were the same way. They take on these kind of matriarchal leadership roles in the family, and when people ask them to do something, they won't say no for lots of reasons, because we've always done that, because we've been the leader in the church or in the home, or because telling someone no, I'm afraid I might hurt their feelings. Telling someone no, they might not like me. So people, women, if we're particularly talking about women of color, who struggle with that is that sense of rejection. So if I tell someone no, then I'm going to get rejected by them. I'm not going to be liked by them. I'm not going to be accepted by them. So I don't say no, even though I want to. I won't say no.
Right. And then the other part of that question was being able to submit to the authority of the men in our lives. Mm. Why do you think we have such a hard time as Black women with taking the cape off in that area?
So this, for me, has been something I've been exploring in the last probably year or so, because for me, that's an identity issue for women. Mm-hmm. And so over the years, women have taken on the identity of, in some ways, being the man in the relationship. And that's not the order, and that's not how God created us. But when you've been a single mom, or you've dealt with a passive man, you will sometimes take over that role and assume the role, which now you learn at some point you will start to emasculate the man. And so he may say to you, you don't need a man because you are a man. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he doesn't mean physically you're a man. He means you're subsuming the role in an authority position that the man typically would in the relationship. And so when I talk about identity, because women, and not just in the relationship with the man and being submissive in the way Christ defines it, but we have an identity issue because we don't know who we are. Mm-hmm. Which means we will succumb to whichever way the wind blows in terms of functioning, because we have not accepted or come to like who we are. So we're trying to figure out, well, I think I'm this, or I think I'm that, or I'm supposed to be this way for this group of people, and maybe at church I'm supposed to be this, and then at home and in school and on the job. And so we don't often develop a solid identity, and we're still trying to find ourselves a bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's so true, because the number one cause of stress in our lives is when we're trying to live someone else's story.
Yeah.
And when we don't have our own identity, we're trying to live in the role of others, then we're creating that stress in our lives. We have not yet accepted that until we live our own truth, until we are accepting of who we are as women, and that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that it's okay to say no, and that it's okay to take that cape off sometimes. We create an imbalance in our life because we're living out of order.
Yes, exactly. And we compare ourselves to other women and to their lifestyles and to what we think, to the lifestyle that people are projecting in public. And that's one thing I work with a lot of women on, because we're so much a part of living and admiring and envying other people's lives, but you only see what people want you to see.
Oh, yeah.
Only see what's projected, and so you emulate some of these people, but behind closed doors, that's not a real reality.
Right.
But when you try to chase that, it's not even, I don't even want to call it like we used to say, trying to keep up with the Joneses. I don't even think it's that anymore. It's like, I don't know who I am. I'm going to be them. I want that and I want that, and they seem to have this and they seem to have that, because we just haven't we haven't connected enough with ourselves to figure out, I don't need to be like them to still be successful. I don't need to be like them to still feel good about myself. But because they look like they have it all together and they're so happy, we think we want that life.
Right. And I don't know about you, I'm sure you do in your practice, but I find that a lot of women that I deal with have this sense, and myself included at some point, it's a process, it's a growth process that we all have to go through, where we have this sense of obligation to help everyone else but ourselves, and we neglect our own self-care. And so when we are feeling overloaded, when we are feeling like we're living someone else's story because we don't quite know who we are yet, we try to help everyone else instead of helping ourselves. What do you think that comes from for women, and how can we help these women who are listening today to kind of begin to deal with that and to mature in that area?
Honestly, I boil down to, for me, I think we're chasing the wrong dream. Because in my personal life, work has been a big thing for me all my life, school and then work, and chasing opportunities and going to all these networking events and thinking I need to be all these places while neglecting my marriage. So, again, I'm chasing the wrong dream, and when my husband kind of pulled my coattail about it, and he said to me, and he has to remind me from time to time, he says, you're forgetting your biggest cheerleader. And you're forgetting me, and you're forgetting blah, blah. So sometimes I have to be reminded that I don't really need to be in all those places, that I just need to really stay connected with God, because he will create those opportunities for me. I don't have to keep chasing people and events and conferences. And I need to attend to my husband, because my first priority, my first ministry is my home.
Right.
And when we step out of order of that, we start chasing the wrong dream. And that's something I had to learn. And guess what? I'm well past 40, so I know that there are lots of women who are still struggling with that, because we just see so many people want this American dream, the African American dream, and just so many things we want and desire. And there's nothing wrong with wanting those things. We just have to remember to keep what's a priority, keep the main thing.
Right.
And then we can have time to focus on and build everything else.
Sometimes we don't even realize that we're chasing some stuff. And neglect our primary responsibility. It's so true. Just a portion of my own personal testimony. As the oldest child in the family, I always had the obligation to take care of, particularly with my siblings, and just was probably one of the reasons why I wound up being a counselor, right? But in its obligation to help everyone else, I was neglecting my core family unit. So when I would have people coming to live with me in my family, I would have, spending hours after hours, at work, because thinking that was how I was going to become successful, but helping those the clients at work, or helping my family members outside of my core family unit, and doing that and chasing
that sense of validation. I was essentially creating a wedge between my core family unit and my primary responsibilities. I was trying to be everything to everybody and not keeping primary my core family.
And I can remember clearly the moment when my daughter, at about age 13, came to me and said, "Mom, you love those kids more than you love me." Clearly I didn't, but clearly that was her perception. And so I asked myself, what am I teaching her about the strength of a woman? You know, am I teaching her that strength is running around doing everything for everyone else and neglecting those who need you most?
Particularly yourself.
You know, as women and moms and wives, we've put in our kids enough, or they've seen enough of us to be able to be resilient in difficult situations. And what we don't realize is that we're just recreating, you know, this cycle, of feeling like you're supposed to do everything.
Exactly. That's right. We modeled, like the women have modeled for us, which is why we feel like we have to operate with this Superwoman cape. And again, many women don't get a hold of this until they're sick. So we know that stress can break the body down. It breaks down the immune system. And so, you know, I remember last December, I and this is the thing about taking vacations and time off, because we wait to holidays to think that we need to do that. But it was December, and close to Christmas, and I had been just running, working and such. And I knew I was tired, but I kept saying, I just got to get to the Christmas week because I'm going to take some time off and I'll be fine. And I could feel it coming. I just saw my body. It was like when your car is going from E to I'm getting ready to cut off on you in the middle of the road. So I was on the fumes. And I remember I ran home. My stepdaughter and the grandkids were there. And I was trying to feed the dogs, make sure they were fed, and I was running back to work. And I hit myself on the end of the counter. And my stepdaughter goes, she goes, what's wrong with you? And I said, I don't know. I'm just in a hurry and I have a headache. And I left. And later that night, 3 a.m. in the morning, I was violently ill. I was violently ill for 2 days. I saw this coming 2 weeks ahead of time. But because we're all on this kind of treadmill of life and we still kind of getting away from that Superwoman thing, I didn't take the time off when I should have. And so subsequently, when you don't rest on your body will rest on you. And that's kind of where stress impacted my life, because now it took me out for 3-4 days, where maybe if I had taken care of it and addressed it when I was feeling that way, I wouldn't have been in that position where I was that sick.
Absolutely.
And I didn't miss anything. You know, me taking a day off here or there, people survive. I mean, you may get some flack from folks who have some kind of obligation to you, but rescheduling is always an option. And your health and your priority, you can't pour into an empty cup. You know, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if we don't pay attention to our bodies and and the messages, our bodies always are talking to us. You know, when you have a migraine because you haven't eaten, or you're dehydrated, you haven't, or, you seem to get very tired, you're very fatigued, you're not sleeping, you're oversleeping. Like, the body's very clear about when it's done, when you need to take a break. And then the mind is as well. When you need that vacation, that retreat, that meditation during the day, your mind also will start to get very cloudy, very foggy. You won't think it's clear. Your concentration will be off. You won't be on point with what you're doing. So when it comes to stress, there's no secret to this.
Absolutely.
But, we tend to ignore all the signs, signals, whistles, fire trucks, EMTs, and we ignore all of that because we're pushing because we think and believe that's what we've been taught to do, and so we have to.
And we believe that it's preserving us when really it's breaking us down. We believe that it's preserving the family. We believe that it's preserving our community, the African-American community, when really it's doing nothing more than breaking us down. And, so I do want to talk a little bit about how we come out of that mindset of, I think that we like you said, it's modeled for us to think that the more we care for the needs of others, the stronger we look. And it almost gives us motivation every day at times. The problem with it is like you said, the more we pour out, if we're not also receiving, we're breaking down.
Yes.
So how can we begin to incorporate our own self-care.
I think conversations like this is awesome. I think this, first of all, brings it to a level of awareness that some women had not thought of before. They didn't think that it's okay to say I'm tired, or to say no, to not accept every job opportunity or task or project that comes their way for fear of loss of income or loss of revenue. So conversations like these, but I think helping women to give themselves permission that it's okay that I don't do it all, that people will survive. And in fact, when you step back, typically, not 100% of the time, so I know this is not everybody's reality, but when you step back, someone will step up.
Right.
But if you keep staying in that position, there's no room for them. I remember this one therapist was working with, I think she's working with a parent, and I guess the mom was coming across as a very know-it-all, and she joked, and I don't want people to get too religious on this joke, but she was like, well, when did Jesus come off the cross and you got up there? Because her point was, you aren't all, she was trying to say, you're doing a lot of judging, and you're believing you're not open to any other viewpoint. You believe that you already know it all. And so when we operate like that, then it's hard for people to speak into our life because we think we already know. So conversations like this helps increase women's self-awareness, and also to help them say, okay, give yourself permission to take 15 minutes a day, to join a gym, to join a dance class, something where you can begin to release some of the stress that people are feeling.
Absolutely. Our diet, our exercise patterns, our personal relationships, there comes a time in our life where we have to realize who needs to go and who needs to stay.
Yeah.
And that's a part of our self-care, I recently, as you know, and so I don't know how many of the listeners know, I recently moved to Texas, and part of my move to Texas was when I came to visit, I felt a peace that I just could not even begin to explain to anyone. And, my move here was symbolic of me releasing and letting go of everything that was holding on to me and making me feel like I had to keep that cape on. I literally left my cape, I say all the time, in New Jersey when I moved. Because I really am at a place in my life where I feel like I don't need it anymore. It's time to release and let go. And, I have an extra one in my closet if I ever have to throw it on for a few minutes. Right? And I think that we have to get to the place in life where we're okay with that, where we're okay with letting everyone else be for a moment so that we can strengthen ourselves, so that we can learn how to operate in the gift that God gave us of resting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's a gift that many of us don't. I remember, Angela, I used to say this all the time. Like, I would call my friend sometimes. She'd be like, well, I'm sleeping. And I would be like, sleep is for suckers. People who want to get money don't sleep. And they was
team no sleep. Did you ever see that on social media? They used to do hashtag team no sleep.
Yeah, and when I see those things now, I laugh at them because I realize how silly it is. And I realize that until we identify what our why is in life, we're constantly going to be in this perpetual state of stress and anxiety, and until we accept that we don't have to be everything to everybody, that's where we're going to stay. Overload causes our imbalance. So it was at that moment when I realized that rest was important and it was okay to rest. And that was a challenge for me. I told you I was the oldest child. I was the one who was always taking care of everybody else. I was the one who, worked 3 jobs. I don't know that I've ever had a time in my life where I didn't work multiple jobs. So I was constantly going. It gave me energy, I thought, or at least I thought. But it's almost like the high is caffeine. After a while, you come down.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Whereas if we were just eating healthy and doing healthy things for ourselves, then that high would be continuous, right? So we have to learn to get off of that caffeine high and get on that healthy living high so that we can maintain our levels of healthy stress, because some stress is good for us. Some stress motivates us and it gets us going, like the stress of taking a test that we know is going to get us to another level, or the stress of winning a baseball game. Those kinds of stressors are not necessarily bad, but when it's continuous and we ignore them because society and our history and our past and our ancestors and our foremothers and our spiritual values even have taught us that we're just supposed to keep going.
Yes.
That's when it becomes that constant drip of cortisone in our body that's tearing us down and giving us all kinds of health issues that now we go to the doctors and they give us medication to control. We will learn how to reprogram our minds and our thoughts and our lives, and we wouldn't even need all of that stuff.
Certainly.
You know? So, you know, just as a recap, some of those perceived benefits that we see in being a superwoman is, you know, that preservation of self-survival in our families and our communities. But really, when I asked the question in the beginning, is it a double-edged sword? That's where that comes in at. There's these perceived benefits of being a superwoman, but really, there's also that other side where we embody the stress that goes along with it. And we're seeing an increase. I'm sure you see it all the time, especially when you're dealing with victims of trauma, but just women in general, anxiety, depression, you know, adverse maternal health, all kinds of things like that, which are a reflection of our embodiment of stress.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. So I think, like you said, these kind of conversations are so necessary. And so awesome for getting us to the point where we realize that we have to come up with a daily regime for how to take care of ourselves, whatever works. You know, for some women, going to get their hair and nails done is a stress reliever. For me, it just, you know, for me, sometimes it can be if I have some extra money, but if like financially I'm strapped, then that's not a stress reliever.
Right, exactly.
You know, but we can't do what everyone else does. That's the other, I think, key factor in this. So what works for you is what I want everyone to leave here thinking about today. You know, what works for you? For me, you know, waking up early, as much as I don't always like waking up early, but having my daily prayer and meditation, setting my day in order, it really, really, truly is the thing that starts me off for having a stress-free day. When I don't, I know that I didn't.
I like that too. I like walking when I can have time before work. I have 2 dogs. I like to walk them. They need the exercise too. I like the fresh air, so I love being outside. I like to read. I like to listen to other people talk about relevant things in terms of either mental health, physical health. Those are the kind of things that interest me.
So do you mean like podcasts?
Even Facebook Lives. There's some people doing some really good Facebook Lives and Periscope. There are people doing some really good, having really rich conversations. I'm not a really big TV person. When it's old TV. Like I watch black and white movies, you know, every now and then some Lifetime stuff. But I'm not like a major TV series that lots of people more kind of to watch that are more current. So I like that. And, you know, when time allows, I like traveling. And when money allows, also I like traveling. So that's a big treat. But on a daily thing, just walking outside to get fresh air and a cup of coffee is good for me.
Yeah.
Gotta have some coffee.
It's relaxing, you know.
Yeah.
Anything done in moderation is good for us. I think that's what people need to realize. It's too much caffeine.
The opposite effect.
Yeah, the opposite effect. And I also think we want to add to that list delegating, learning how to delegate. You know, stop trying to be in control of everything.
That's the truth.
Wherever you can, like wherever you could simplify life, do it.
Yes.
You know, one of my greatest faults in life was always feeling like I had to be complex. You know, always feeling like I couldn't just say something simply. There had to be some complex way of saying it. And I don't necessarily even knew that it was intentional. You know, it was just, you know, one time I was praying with someone and she said to me, the Lord wants to know why you feel like everything has to be so complex. Because he's not complex. He's easy to understand.
That's
and
good.
I was like, whoa. how much stress was I creating for myself, trying to make sure things were just right in the way they were said, and being perfect and how they were communicated. How much time did I waste, and how much stress did I create for myself in doing that? And the Lord wasn't saying do that. That was something I thought I needed to do, but the Lord was saying just say it, just do it.
Oh my God.
So that's another thing. Wherever we can in life, just simplify.
I like that. Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
And then I think also one of the things I wanted to put out there for the listeners is learning to control our stress by taking control of our time.
Time management, yes.
It's ultimately our most precious possession. I mean, we spend so much time, and I don't know about you, but we spend so much time strolling through Instagram and Facebook.
Yes.
I think about how much time I've spent in a month doing that I spent on things that would have ultimately created some margin time in my life. We all need margin time. We cannot be constantly on the go.
Right.
Yeah. So put the phone down for 10, 15 minutes and spend some time just meditating, or spend some time, like you said, listening to a podcast for 15 minutes. Spend some time on something that's going to make deposits into you. So
it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I even hear people do is they take the phone in the bathroom. So they won't even go to the bathroom in peace. Yeah.
Because we're so important. I mean, we're just so important that we have to always be near this phone.
that 5 minutes alone wouldn't the 5 minutes, oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, oh boy, if I don't take the phone in the bathroom with me, I'm surely going to miss some life altering conversation on Facebook, or some email that's going to change my life forever. That email will be there when you come out.
Sure will.
So take control of your time and organize your life, and just create balance so that we can stop getting so burnt out.
And I think that also that depending on who you talk to, you'll hear people talk about balance. And so one of the things that I tell women is set priorities. Don't, if you're trying to balance everything in your life, you can't. It's impossible, because some things deserve more attention than others.
Right.
So when we talk about balance, we're talking about don't get too far out of balance. But at the same time, set priorities so that you balance life with work, or you balance career with like, you just don't want to feel like, because that's another stress that people have, like, oh, I can't get everything in balance. Well, you're not going to, because some things are supposed to take more time and attention than other things at different times in your life. So it's more about setting priorities for where you are right now.
Yes, and if I could just add to that, the truth is, some of the stuff that we think is important that we need to do just don't need to be done. At least
not right away, anyway.
Right, or under pressure is a top priority. Some things in life are not only unnecessary, but they're also counterproductive to the things that we should be doing, like our family, our friendships, or our health, and our peace.
I also learned from someone, and I don't know, because when you go to different networking events or conferences, you just hear these tidbits. But one of the things that when you talked about earlier about women not being able to say no, and this is going to go in conjunction with the time management, is that when someone asks you about doing something, participating in something, or contributing in some way, is not to give an immediate answer all the time right away. It's to say, well, you know what? Let me check my calendar. Can I get back to you in 24 hours? Can I get back to you by Wednesday or something? So buy yourself some time to, number one, to really sit down and think, is this something that I want to do? Sometimes we say yes to things right off the bat, even believing and hearing it sounds like a good opportunity, but then we get in it and we're like, boy, if I had thought more about this, I probably wouldn't be doing this. So just to buy yourself some time to really reflect on, is this of value to me? Is this something somebody else can do? Can I help them find someone who can do this? Because maybe I'm already committed. When I don't do that, I found myself double booking things. And then you have to apologize to one party, and, if you could head off some of that kind of stress, if you just take a few minutes to say to them, I really need to check my schedule, and if the person is like, well, I need someone right now, then maybe that's not the opportunity for you.
Absolutely. And you know what else winds up happening when I say yes when I really don't want to? Or when, I'm like, I should have said no, I should have thought more about it, like you said. I lose my joy in whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. Like, the people there irritate me. I get frustrated. I'm anxious. Yep. I get critical of the situation. I'm resentful. I begin to complain. So, again, just keeping that healthy margin in our lives, learning how to say no, and realizing that old theory that we have of if I don't do it, it just won't get done right, or it just won't get done at all. We got to let go of that. Mm-hmm. We have to let go of, become a better steward of our time. And like you said, just learning to say no and being okay with delegating someone else for the job, maybe. So I just want to say thank you. We're going to wrap up. And I just want to say thank you, and I hope that you'll join us again for one of our Freedom Friday
Absolutely.
Conversations. This has been awesome. There's so much more. I mean, we have not even begun on the surface. This is more of like an introduction, so maybe we could set something up and just make sure you check your calendar first.
I know, that's right. Well, when we did, and you did, so we worked it out.
Yes, we did. So, well, thank you, Dr.
You're
Clack.
welcome.
Thank you to everyone who's on listening today. If you have any questions, I'm going to give you my contact information, then I'll have Dr. Clack give you hers. But if you have any questions for me, I can be reached
at www.shannonwhite.com.
If you are not already following me on Instagram for my daily motivation, please do so at Shannon White _life coach. And Dr. Clack,
www.clack, CLACK associates.com. I can be found on Facebook. I have 2 pages. One is a little more clinically heavy, so you can do Dr. Angela Clack or Clack Angela, which is also Twitter and Instagram.
Well, thank you so much again.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to having another discussion with you soon.
Sounds good.
All right, you have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.